we are facing a crisis right now, that is no doubt, but it is hyperbolic to suddenly say that this is somehow similar to the Second World War. The context of this is so very different that it simply doesn't hold water from a historical perspective. Now, granted, many British Columbians are going to have to come together and sacrifice in these next, weeks or months, however long this goes. But realistically, this isn't the Second World War in repeat, and this isn't the type of crises that we faced as a province and a country in the Second World War.
Right. So, as you said, it can evoke that sense of patriotism, but is it really fair or accurate to make that comparison given we're talking about trade rather than a military war?
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue here is just because we're speaking of economic attacks, that doesn't mean we're actually at war with someone. And maybe it's the fact that we use this language of war when we're discussing these economic issues that we're facing that quickly lead us down a path towards the Second World War or Canada in wartime. And arguably that language itself is maybe problematic in the way we're approaching this. Now, granted, Canadians are upset. Canadians feel offended. There is no doubt about that. And I'm one of those. But at the same time, I think it's very dangerous to sort of use hyperbolic language like this because it doesn't really help the situation. It sort of ratchets up the intensity and the anxiety, I think.
Well, you talk about that anxiety. Is that justified given we're hearing talk, repeated talk of Canada being the 51st state? So we're talking about trade war, but also that looming threat perhaps to Canada's sovereignty.
Yes, okay, and that's a fair comment in the sense that, of course, anyone should be anxious when the most powerful nation on the planet jokes about annexing you or makes comments about you joining them. I've said this before on CBC and other places. I do not think this is in any way a credible threat to Canada. That does not mean, however, that people shouldn't feel anxiety over this. I think, in fact, we've seen Canada respond pretty tremendously to these type of threats in all of the sort of different ways that we're seeing political and economic negotiations within the country. So the anxiety is real, it's valid, but in my opinion, this idea of America annexing Canada is simply too far flung to take any seriously beyond Trump's own sort of egomaniacal methods of political haggling.